Hey guys, Mr. Jaeger here, and welcome back to Arma 3. Ignore the gameplay, it's specifically just so I can upload something with it and have something for you to look at if you are interested. So, I made a video recently, and uploaded a video recently about me playing with a bunch of people called the 10th Mountain Division. Now, I didn't really specify a lot about said group because I wanted to talk about this sort of change in this style of video. And I did actually have the footage and the video and the audio recorded from that thing, but I realized I kind of went into an amazing level of detail and spent nearly an hour talking about my history in Arma and like an Operation Flashpoint and my time playing, on with the 75th, and it's like, it's nice, but I think I need to gloss over it because it's just like too much information, not really necessary, and also it will bore you guys to tears. So instead, I wanted to make a fairly glossed over sort of story regarding why I left the 75th and why I joined the 10th MD and what this means for you guys and as well. So basically, I was with the 3rd Ranger Battalion, or 75th Rangers 3rd Battalion, for about 2 years, and about 1.5 years of that was a lot of fun. But there was always a problem with this particular group, was that they were American. So what that meant for me was that if I ever wanted to attend any of the ops that they were doing, it would always be at 11 o'clock at night. So often the ops would continue on till like either 1 o'clock or midnight. And and depending on the day that we did these ops, which often was a Friday, which led into Saturday, and normally that shouldn't be a problem, but in my job, I have to get up early on a Saturday morning. So it meant that, I would lose, I would have a day where I would not get much or any sleep. And for a long time, I was okay with this because, I had a lot of fun while playing with the group. But of course, in more recent times, things sort of came along, and that was one of the bigger factors that contributed to me leaving it. But to before we get onto that, let's do a little bit of a backtrack to what started it all off, what made me sort of feel that the 75th was no longer something I really wanted to do. So basically, we had around March, we began the Korean Wars campaign. This was where they were doing like the whole Winter Olympics-y thing. It's like, what, January, February? I think it was around February, March-esque. And what would happen was we basically was doing a traditional sort of North Korea tries it on, they get the backing from either China or Russia, and it's World War III again. And the irony wasn't lost on us on that point as well. I think they did it on... I think the guys who were coming up with the story did it on purpose, or just was like, yeah, well, that fits. So we basically had the first op, which was rather fun. The second op was when we started having the problem that kind of killed the campaign, was that the problem that would be was that the Zeusers, who basically, for a short explanation, are players who spawn down enemy squads and items and objects who dynamically change the mission and can also possess some of those vehicles and infantrymen to spice up the combat or whatever. But anyway, the Zeusers would place down a jet or something like that, and either one of the players would knock it out or it would crash, either way. And what would occur was that the server would shit itself and die. And so we'd end up having ops where we would go in, and about 20 minutes in, the entire... Oh, something just fell down. The entire op would just go to shit, and it would end up resulting in about 20 minutes of footage. And not even entertaining footage, it would just be us marching towards an objective. Something would go on in the sky, and then we'd get the no message received from server from X amount of seconds. And it was very frustrating. So eventually, due to frustration of of having constant crashes, the heads honchos decided to put us into an insurgency campaign, where we would go into various compounds, clearing out Hajis and knocking out ammunition caches, whilst also trying to find people who were responsible for funding them. Sort of a more dynamic-y, story-driven campaign. And the problem with that was, I think, a mixture of people losing the impetus for that campaign. I don't think there was a lot of impetus to do that because it was more based in reality. There wasn't as much action going on between ops, and unfortunately, another factor, which was a bit of a big problem, was the fact that the Zeusers we had, some of the Zeusers would be way too harsh on players as we were going around. Like spawning infantry units right behind allied squads who had just cleared an area out, or like, or spawning in IEDs, and like, making them somewhat harder to find. The IEDs weren't so much the issue. I think there were some that were plainly visible, but there was like sort of miscommunication about where they were, and people would get killed by them. Mass caches were a common thing, which basically means a mass cache is basically, or CAS, is basically where a squad-sized element takes fire. Like a fire team, admittedly, but, bigger than a fire team. Like 3 or 4 guys gets knocked out, and, you have to kind of stop the op, in a sense, to get them all healed up. So we would have some ops where we would be stuck waiting around for one squad to get healed, only to find that another squad would get fucked in the process. And it got frustrating, and I even lost my temper on one of the ops, because it was just... we constantly got hit by people. We had friendly fire incidences going off. The Zeus's would not relent, because it sounds a bit backwards for a military game to complain about, to have sort of, for people to complain that they get shot in a military game. But it was like the AI was set to sort of hit you if you were being stupid and, to provide an actual challenge. But the Zeus's obviously can exploit certain things, and for argument's sake, they can do really stupid things like bull charge you, because, they won't die and be stuck and be lost in the game. They can actually lose the unit that you've just killed and then spawn in another unit whilst you're trying to tend to your wounds and all that. I think there's certain videos on YouTube where they make players out to look to be really stupid because they don't watch their sectors or whatever, but what they don't explain sometimes is the fact that the last 10 minutes they basically got hammered on all sides by like insurgent groups or like enemy infantry units. So it got frustrating, and it was one of the things that was pissing me off as well, more than anything, because it was just like, can you let off? Give us a chance to actually heal the dudes that got fucked by an IED. And yeah, so I was not there for the last op in the campaign, but apparently I think something happened, or something just made one of the the clan leaders lose complete faith with the insurgency campaign, and basically he cancelled that one as well. So that was that one done. So then we finally get to go to the last campaign I was involved with, or more to be accurate, the FTX's prior campaign that I was involved with, because what they decided to do was, due to attendance issues in some of the platoons we have 2 platoons. The first platoon has better attendance than second platoon, though there are occasions where first platoon also has problems with attendance. But more often than not, the first platoon guys would be full, and any kind of overfill, anyone on reserves or anyone like that, would be filtered over towards second platoon, who didn't exactly have the best roster attendance at times. I was in the first squad of the second platoon. So my guys were generally all right. Most of the time, we had people attending. Not always, of course. There would be some people who would join us for one op, and then we'd never see them again. But but generally speaking, second platoon was never really fully strong. Was never at full strength. So command had the thought of, well, why don't we give them what they said were mechs, but really it was just armored personnel carriers. So they gave us 2 strikers, which is basically like an LAV with a sort of a different... It's like a more upgraded form of LAV, just minus the turret. There are certain vehicles that you've seen. You've got the MGS edition, which has like the 105. You've got the one with like the tow missile launcher, the whatever. But we were given the one which had no cage armor, no sort of urban sort of protection, just simply an armored personnel carrier with a 50 cal machine gun, which I think we had to man, but might have been remote controlled. We got a glass cannon for a freaking, armored personnel carrier, because, you fire a grenade launcher on it, the tires would go. You fire an RPG, it would explode. And we were supposed to use these things as a frontline supporting vehicle to, back up the infantry if they were taking too much fire. And, we basically were just left with these sort of really kind of tame vehicles, which were nowhere near adequate, in my opinion, to provide actual infantry support. But they gave them to us. But the way they gave them to us was, in my opinion, just stupid. Just fucking stupid. And it was one of the biggest problems I had. Was what they did was they put us into an FTX op, which is generally like what they felt was a training op, where basically you'd passed your training, your official training in the group, and then you get to attend, in between campaigns, we would be trialing new-ish things. So everyone would know what they were doing, and they'd know what roles they would be doing, and they would put us into this semi-fictitious scenario to basically experiment with certain things. But what would happen... but what happened in this one was that they gave us the APCs to, like, the platoon commander, and they said, here are some APCs, like, here's some strikers, use them in the op. No prior warning, no actual, understanding or any kind of message was passed over to our commander to say, by the way, we're going to be implementing some new thing for your platoon. He will let you know closer. No warning at all. And they basically expected us to use these things with no dedicated crew. So, one squad would have to sacrifice infantry for the sake of vehicles. And the organization behind it was atrocious, in my opinion. And it was painful. And like the first op we had with them, obviously was a nightmare. Most of the time we were trying to figure out where the squads were located to utilize them. Trying to push through, because we were on the Malden map trying to clear the airfield in the north, near the town of Saint-Philippe. And we ended up spending probably about 30-40 minutes just trying to figure out how to get the camp, to get the fucking vehicles going on. We spent forever trying to figure out which vehicle went to who, which person, and setting up communications between the two. It took us 3/4 of the op before we finally had a very rough, rudimentary system in place to establish communications, like when we tried to assign vehicles to people. But even then, when we had vehicles being assigned to us, someone from one of the guys who was second in command for the platoon felt that the vehicle wasn't doing what wasn't pushing up as fast as they wanted it. So he got in the vehicle and told them, "Oh, you need to go here, you need to go there." So a vehicle that was previously assigned to me would end up being sent in another direction, despite what I was asking. And what I felt was necessary for the op. It was more like it got ignored. And it was a fucking shambles every time. And every time at the end of the op, I would make a mention of at least giving us the chance to do some training. Actually spending some time in a non-combat environment, trying to maybe look at some of the field manuals for what they would use in real life, and to just understand what we can do, who would be okay with utilizing this, because effectively certain squad pick members just got told, you're no longer going to run around and have fun, you're now cooped up in a vehicle which can explode at any moment. So I may be sounding slightly salty at this point, but it's because in my opinion, it was a fucking shambles what we did with those vehicles. And it was just, in my opinion, completely stupid. But anyway, so going back to the main subject at hand, we basically spent the next few weeks trying to get these vehicles to work, and every time we tried, it was just barely successful. We barely managed to use them effectively. They were, we lost. We also had the mass counter situation again. It was not functioning as it should. It was more frustrating to go into an op than to actually play it. And and what kind of sort of rang the bell, in a sense, that told me this is no longer what I want to do, was out of frustration, I just mentioned, because, I said, look, I know we're going to have problems, but and I kept iterating it, because I said, if we had the fucking time to train these guys, and basically one of the guys was just like, look, Jaeger, even if I wanted to, we can't do, even if we wanted to have, a training session, no one would come to it, because we're not, we're a casual group. We don't do that sort of thing. No one would want to come to that kind of training, even if we made it mandatory, because no one wants to do it like that. We want to have fun and want to enjoy this game, and I'm not parrot-quoting, I'm not quoting exactly what he said, but the general gist was, we're not that into this game to spend time training with vehicles that require that level of training. And I had to fucking button my lid so hard, because I was so tempted just to shout, why the fuck did you put them in then? Ooh. Yeah. So anyway, I, at that point, realized this is not for me. That, you know, and I make these guys sound like they're inept. They're not. They are, you know, they have a lot of fun, and they have some pretty awesome ops as well, but the style in which they do the ops, I just did not enjoy anymore. The way that they commenced, you know, operations, and the way they do tactics, and it's fine, it's great, and there are some really good sort of epically big ops, but the way they work around certain things just I did not find enjoyable or logical anymore. So I decided at that point, right, okay, evidently I need to start looking for another group. And this is where the other factor comes in, where, you know, I'm doing these ops at like 11 o'clock at night, and I'm not enjoying them. I'm losing sleep. I'm having to get up for work absolutely knackered on my feet, my eyes bloodshot and everything, for not that much enjoyment. And I feel that, well, I felt at the time, and I still feel now, I couldn't justify that anymore. I couldn't justify playing on an American server at like silly o'clock in the morning because of an Arma 3 thing. So I decided, you know, I wanted to try and go for another group. Initially, the time factor wasn't the main priority search, but it became that. Because when I, so after, like, what was it? After that op, I started looking about, and I found another group of people called TSB. I think if you may know, there's a YouTuber called Liru who makes loads of videos, who makes his dudes look out to be bad, but apparently, well, not apparently, but he makes his, I think he makes a lot of sort of clan Arma videos, and he does some good content as well, and they also do a variety of different kind of content as well. But apparently he's the kind of YouTuber who makes his guys look bad, but doesn't exactly frame... He only frames it when the shit goes wrong and the people look stupid. When in actual fact, if you sort of look out from a third-person perspective, a lot of the scenarios are actually caused because either one person didn't get the right amount of information, or the way that they played it was like... If you had rewinded the clock about 10 minutes, or if you showed the minutes 10 minutes beforehand, you'd find that they weren't paying attention because they just had a fucking wave of infantry from only one direction attack them, and they lost a lot of guys in the process due to that attack, or X, Y, and Z. So it's like, but no, like the, you know, and I very kindly got an opportunity to play on. I think I didn't get to meet the guy, but I met a few of his clanmates. They were doing like a side-esque op. And they were doing a Vietnam op, which I will be featuring in the description below, telling you guys that was when I was with the TSB, like when I tried a TSB op. And it was a lot of fun, and when I played that was the first real fun I had in Arma in God knows how long. Like, definitely longer than it was when I was with 3rd RB. Because we were basically playing Vietnam. It wasn't just because we were basically playing Vietnam, but the level of tactics and coordination was just that much higher. It was that much more detailed. Like, people were talking more, not just militarily, but people were utilizing logistical and actual logical tactics to deal with problems. We were we spent most of the op in stealth because we were not an army unit just going in shooting shit up. We were a special operations group. Our objective was to blow up a series of our objective was to blow up certain items to make sure that the airways were clear, or, you know, they were to sort of make the area easier to move through. And it was, you know, really actual logical, logistical, tactical missions. And that was a lot of bloody fun, not gonna lie. But unfortunately, once again, the time factor came into place, because it was actually even worse than the 3rd RB, because some of their ops would start at about 2 in the bloody morning. And, you know, I just thought, no, I can't. It was a great opportunity to play with those guys, and I appreciate them spending time with me on that one, but unfortunately, I couldn't do anything about it. You know, I can't, you know, and the only time I could really dedicate time for that is if I was a famous YouTuber who could stay up till 3 in the morning, because then I wouldn't have to worry about work the next day, and I could just go to bed and no problem. But no. So, you know, unfortunately, I had to withdraw on that one, which was a bit of a shame, but oh well. So the next time, then after that, I then had to really knuckle down to the factor of find, you know, a unit that is within reasonable time, European time. You know, instead of it being 11 o'clock, 8 o'clock, or with 9 o'clock, you know, my absolute limit was 10 o'clock. And then, of course, I found the 10th MD. MD, sorry, the 10th Mountain Division, which is basically an American unit, the 10th Mountain Division, served in Afghanistan and various other locations, but it was being run in Europe, and so I sort of looked on Google. I looked into I went on the official website, onto their website as well as other websites, and I sort of gandered about looking for information. And I thought, you know what, I'll wing it and see what I'll do. So I went into their TS, waited for a bit, and in fact, one of their higher up guys came along. Normally there was this UK guy called Flipped who would be along, but instead it was this guy called Holted who was really nice, and obviously not their actual names as a username X, Y, and Z. But no, the point is, they welcomed, they spoke to me about stuff. I had a really nice conversation with them. And then I got a chance to, once he'd sort of sent me the mod list and all that jazz, he sent me the stuff. I got to download the mods, and, I got to join a few of their guys whilst they were on an op. Once they were on their public server, and they were just mucking around on a domination game. And I only got to spend about an hour, maybe 2 hours with those guys, but oh my god, the vibe I got. Like, there are ex-military guys, there are people in the military who are in the group, but the level of communication that was flowing from them, like someone was shouting, like, someone with the radio saying, interrogative, we have contacts bearing 793 map grid, and like the level of dedication to doing stuff. I mean, again, they were playing fairly casual as well. It wasn't one of their main ops. They were just doing their thing, but I instantly gelled with some of the people there, and I started to feel like this is what I wanted in an Arma group, something that allows me to feel more, able to enjoy the game as it was, and also not spend fucking ages like barely opening my eyes and mumbling on the microphone because obviously, it's late at night. So I finally got to do, I ended up jumping into the op, which was the video I released on Monday, now sadly Tuesday, but I had actually got the video uploaded in a sense. I hadn't published it, but I had uploaded it on Monday. Thank you, Blackout, at fucking 11 o'clock, which lasted nearly an hour. So obviously by the time I got all the details in from my now uploaded video, it was now Tuesday, but that's besides the point. So that op came on, and it was incredible. Like, ironically, I also played the class of what I was when I first went into the 3rd RB. When I was slotted into a role, I was given an AR slot, which is automatic rifleman. It's basically you running around with an M249 saw, but it was just so much fun. And again, when I was with, this was way more fun than even TSB, because the guy who I was with, who was in command, was like, he came up to me and he was like, so Jaeger, I heard you're in another group, but do you know cyclic rate, rapid and sustained fire with your machine gun? And I just went like, oh no, I don't know. Do I need a bicycle now? Are bicycles involved in this operation? And already I thought, right, I am gonna have to relearn a lot of my armor, because I evidently learnt nothing in comparison to what the 10th MD had. So yeah, I will not lie, in comparison to the 10th MD, the 3rd RB does not do anything anywhere near as tactical as this. The 10th MD doesn't have as many troops in, though they are getting more people in, which is nice to see. But but what they do is they talk a lot more in depth with their tactics. They do, they focus on more logical, like military tactics and equipment effectiveness. They are still in for fun. They're not like the 15th MEU, who are like all about respecting the ranks and stuff. They do ask for you to respect the person who is in command. It's like a logical, when you're playing with this sort of thing, there's a mutual understanding that you do as you're told, by the guy who's in charge. Not just because he's got a little server icon saying lieutenant, but because he actually has played with the group long enough to know what he is doing, and he expects you to do your job, and he has to worry about other things as well. So if he tells you to do something, don't quiz him on it, just fucking do it. And and if you do have a problem, wait until after the op, and then you can speak to someone in high command who then can actually solve the problem for you. But anyway, so to cut the long story short, I have found at the moment, touch wood, I want this to last. Don't get me wrong, but I have found the group that I am in love with, if it makes any sense, because it has the right level of community, the right level of tactics, and the right level of enjoyment. In fact, a high level of enjoyment. You know, I haven't had this much fun in Arma in fucking years. So. While I probably make out that, the third RB is crap or whatever, it's not that they're crap, they just have a different style of play. Like, they enjoy the military thing, but they don't do the immense military thing. They don't do the intense military thing. They play the way they play, and it's fine. They enjoy it, and I said, I did have lots of fun when I played with them, but it was just over the course of time, I realized I was, not enjoying the ops that I used to enjoy. And, what I found enjoyable in the game was to have a lot more communication, training, logical thought, as well as, actually having tactics, proper tactics, military, terminology, things that in my eye, I find to be way more immersive and enjoyable. So there you have it on that one. So what does this mean for you guys? I've been rambling for nearly half an hour, and I need to quit this thing before we hit the 30-minute mark. So I'll just quickly wrap things up by saying, well, what this basically means is that I will be talking a lot more about the 10th MD, obviously because I'm part of it. But what this will mean is that the ops that we're going to be doing now are longer in nature. So instead of it being like an hour and a half, maybe, it's now going to be like potentially more than 2 hours. So that may mean that there may be more parts to a video, so I may do like a part 1 and part 2, depending on what happens in the video. Sometimes you'll just get an extra long episode than maybe normal, but generally speaking, because lots more now happens in it, you will get more content, which is great for you guys. Also, on Friday, which will be this Friday coming up, so Friday the 21st of September, I will be live streaming the op as well, because we have 2 ops a week, but I'm going to be live streaming the Friday op. So from about, I'm going to probably try and make it so that it's around, I start live streaming about, say, 5 to 8 or whatever, just so that way I get the thing sort of started. And what will happen in those ops is I won't be able to talk to you, really, because it's kind of difficult, because I'll be listening to what the commander is going to be saying, and I'll be dealing with whatever. I will have the second screen up, and if I can answer a question or two, I might type in the comment section of that video, or I may try and mumble an answer to you guys. But generally speaking, I won't really be able to talk to you on the Friday ops, because obviously I'll have other things I need to worry about and other sort of stuff that's going on with that. So, for those who are interested in Arma 3 content on a live streaming basis, I will link my Twitch down in the description below, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it. I hope you will consider watching my other stuff as well. My other live streaming days are going to be exactly the same, Monday and Wednesdays at 9 PM. That's more free-flowing in terms of content, but for Fridays, it's now going to be a dedicated Arma day, which will mean that I can actually enjoy, first of all, my weekends, potentially, unless I really want to do more live streaming, so watch that space sort of thing, or, but most likely it's going to be the Arma day is Friday, which kind of works, kind of rhymes as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I am kind of glossing over certain things, and I'm trying to go from memory, which is always less great the further away you are, but that was what generally happened whilst we were, that was what generally happened during the last sort of few months of me being with the 75th Rangers and my joining the 10th MD. So quick summary, ops was shit because the server crashed, or we basically nothing really fun happened during the other ops, or film-worthy happened during the other ops. I lost faith, I gave up on the 75th because their ideology is different from my ideology, and I couldn't justify staying up till 1 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning when I had to go to work early in the next day. And finally, I joined the 10th MD because they're European time-based, they are a nice military simulator group, and they also know how to have fun, and they're also a really great crowd. So thank you very much for everyone who's watched this. Thank you very much to 10th MD for having me, and I hope to give you guys way more enjoyable content in the future. Thank you also very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed. This is Mr. Jaeger, signing out.
Fuck.
Oh, shit.
Who was it?
That was Z-Boss.
Oh.
It was Wade.
Of course it was.
I
Wayne.
was like, I don't know if he's gonna do that, and he's just like, I don't even know how to fly.
Definitely unapproved. Also, at least you shot well.
Who crashed?
Fucking hell.
No, Williams tried to fly off with the U put down.
Wait, he's alive. What the fuck?
He's alive.
He's alive.
How the
I mean,
fuck did he survive that?
I made everyone invincible. That's because Jaeger. I made everyone invincible during debrief, so people don't accidentally shoot each other, whatever.
Oh.
Accidentally shoot each other?
GG.
Right, everyone let Flip do.
Me purposefully?